Welcome to Wildcat Science with Mrs. Haugo. This is Human Biology, Chapter 22 on the urinary system, Part 2. And today we're talking about the process of urination first, and then how your body maintains homeostasis. So as you know, the process of expelling urine from the bladder is under involuntary and voluntary control. So muscles, and then also sphincters, which are muscular valves, like rings of muscle that open and close. You have your internal urethral sphincter, which is an involuntary ring of smooth muscle that will inhibit or allow urination. And then you thankfully have a voluntary, parts that are under voluntary control. And so that means they're made out of skeletal muscle. So a sphincter made out of skeletal muscle, which will inhibit or allow urination. The external urethral sphincter. All right, so here's some new stuff. Please write this down. So as the bladder fills, the sphincters stay closed. And then as the stretch receptors send information to the spinal cord and the brain stem. So as that bladder fills, there are stretch receptors in the walls of the bladder that are sending information, sensory information, to your spinal cord and then all the way up to your brain, but your brain stem. And this area called the pons in your brainstem is where urination is controlled. Then a decision is made, I gotta go, and hopefully you find a good spot, and voluntary urination starts. And so when this happens, the spinal cord and the pons part of the brainstem then send motor information down to those sphincters, the internal one, which is involuntary, and also the external one, which you voluntarily control. It's made out of skeletal muscle, telling those sphincters to relax and open. And then the bladder walls, actually the motor information gets sent, and the motor information tells the bladder walls to contract. So the sphincters open and the bladder wall contracts and urine comes out of the bladder. That is how you urinate. And here is your brain, and then there's your brain stem, and then this little area here is the pons, and that's where urination is controlled. Okay, so let's take a little look at this pathway. Here is your bladder. And as it's stretching, it sends sensory information to the spinal cord. And then when it stretches to a certain amount, it's going to send more sensory information to the spinal cord and then up to the pons to say, hey, we have to go to the bathroom. And then motor information is sent down from the brainstem through the spinal cord. And it's going to say to open up both the internal and external urethral sphincters, and for those urinary walls to contract and expel or get rid of urine. And that's how it happens. All right, so some other fun things. When the volume of the urinary bladder reaches about 150 to 400 milliliters, so it's about 1 to 3 cups. Walls begin to stretch, and the stretch receptors send signals to the brain and the spinal cord, and it can be delayed if the bladder, you can keep delaying it, but it's going to lead to more and more discomfort and more desire to urinate, and eventually you will either just pee your pants, you'll urinate involuntarily, or in a really severe case, your bladder can exceed its maximum value and burst, but you will pee your pants before your bladder bursts. All right, so the parasympathetic, that rest and digest, stimulates micturition, which is urinating, and then the sympathetic inhibits it. Okay, we're going to talk about, we did a lot of the anatomy, now we're going to talk about the physiology and how does your body maintain homeostasis through the urinary system. Okay, please write this down, maintenance of homeostasis. And kidneys maintain homeostasis of several important internal conditions by controlling the excretion of substances out of the body. you don't need to write these down. We will be writing them down shortly. Those substances are ions. They control the pH. They control the osmolarity, which is your water balance, and they help control blood pressure. So your urinary system is in control of, or helps keep homeostasis for ion levels, pH levels, osmolarity, and blood pressure. So let's start with the ion homeostasis. So kidneys control the excretion of ions into the urine. Just a reminder, some of those ions are potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, phosphate, chloride. They're all really important to have in your body, right? Like you need your sodium, potassium pumps. You need for nerve impulses, you need calcium for bones, but also for muscle contractions. You need your negative ions, phosphates and chlorides, but too much is not good. So when the ion levels are too high, your kidneys are going to increase their excretion. So you're going to send those ions out into the urine and out of the body. When the ion levels are too low, kidneys conserve them by allowing ions to be reabsorbed into the blood during filtration. So they are in the blood plasma, they go into this filtrate, and then your body takes it back, say, nope, the body needs this, and doesn't let it go out of the body through urine. So it reabsorbs it back into the blood so that the body keeps it. When the ion levels are low, kidneys conserve them by allowing ions to be reabsorbed into blood during filtration. So let's talk about pH homeostasis. So we know pH is the level of like how acidic or basic something is, and this is often determined by the level of hydrogen ions. So if it's more hydrogen ions, you are more acidic, but you actually have a lower pH. So kidneys control blood pH by regulating the levels of hydrogen ions, more or less acidic, but also bicarbonate ions, HCO3, because bicarbonate acts as a buffer, and we really like those buffers because they help so that the pH doesn't change even if you have more hydrogen ions. It kind of keeps it in a little narrow range, which is good because you have a narrow range that your blood can be in. So hydrogen ions, so this H plus is hydrogen ions, were produced from the metabolism of proteins, and they accumulate in the blood. And we know if we have a bunch of hydrogen ions, then our body is more acidic, and that isn't good. You can die from acidosis, from your blood being too acidic. So we need to get rid of these. The kidneys will excrete the excess hydrogen ions into the urine, and your body will get rid of them. Your body conserves. It brings back the bicarbonate ions because those act as important pH buffers in your blood. So we take the bicarbonate ions back, and we don't let them be just peed out of the body because we want them. Okay, let's talk about osmolarity, or the osmotic homeostasis. So kidneys maintain your body's osmotic balance because cells need to be in an isotonic environment to maintain fluid and electrolyte balance. So osmotic balance is how many ions and how much water, like the ratios between the ions and the water, and your cells need to be in an isotonic environment or else they will shrink or they'll burst, and so we need to keep that the same. And your kidneys do this by either getting rid of or keeping more water, or getting rid of or keeping more ions or electrolytes. So when a person consumes excess water, the kidneys reduce reabsorption of water, so the excess water is excreted. When you drink excess water, maybe not too much water, but if you drink more water than your body needs, your body is just going to keep it in the filtrate, just going to keep it in the urine. It's not going to take it back. Taking it back is called reabsorption. So then water stays in the urine and more water leaves your body, so the excess water is excreted. So then you have dilute watery urine. So clear or pale yellow is dilute watery urine. What happens if you have not been drinking enough water? If you're dehydrated, the kidneys reabsorb more water back into the blood. So they take that filtrate and they take more water back out of the filtrate, so it's coming back into the body. It's going back into the blood. So then you have highly concentrated urine. So this would be like yellow, dark yellow. So it is controlled in part by ADH, the antidiuretic hormone, which we know is produced in the hypothalamus and released by the posterior pituitary gland. So there again, the pituitary gland is very important. So what does this word antidiuretic hormone mean? Well, a diuretic will promote urine production. So an antidiuretic will have less urine production. It will help, so if you have less urine production, you have more water going back into your body. So your body is retaining water, it's reabsorbing water. So when ADH is released, your body takes more water back in, keeps more water in, it retains more water, and you have more concentrated urine. So the kidneys also help with blood pressure homeostasis. We got to keep our blood pressure at the right pressure. So if your blood pressure is too low, we don't want that to happen, because then you might pass out or you're not getting enough oxygen to all the parts of your body. We want to increase blood volume. So more volume will have more pressure. So if we want more volume, we need to have more water. So we're going to increase reabsorption, and more water stays in the blood. So if more water is staying in the blood, you have less urine, it's more concentrated. Also, your body's going to produce this enzyme, which is called renin, and that helps constrict the blood vessels. So if you have smaller blood vessels for the same volume, there's going to be more pressure on that smaller space. When the blood pressure is high, you want to lower blood volume. So to lower blood volume, you're going to reduce reabsorption of water into the blood, and you're going to increase the amount of urine you produce. So you're going to keep more water. More water is going to stay in the filtrate, less is going to come back into your body, so you're going to pee out more water. So you produce dilute, watery urine. So you're probably asking yourself, great, we have like ion and pH and osmolarity and blood pressure homeostasis, but how do your kidneys maintain this homeostasis? Good question. The blood plasma is filtered in the kidneys. And so let's go through the overview of filtration. So blood plasma is pushed out of the blood capillaries and into a capsule. Now we call it filtrate, and that liquid filtrate flows through a series of tubules, and the cells surrounding the tubules reabsorb water, and they reabsorb all the good stuff, certain substances from the filtrate, and they return it back to the body, they return it back to the blood. And then the filtrate that stays in the tubule becomes urine, and it only contains excess water, excess ions, and then our waste products, kind of like those nitrogenous wastes that your body wants to get rid of. So you're probably wondering to yourself, well, that sounds great, all this filtration, but where really does it happen? So the filtration occurs in the nephrons of the kidney. What is a nephron? Well, a nephron is a very small structure in a kidney. It's so small that each kidney has about 1 million nephrons, and it is the functional unit. So it works together to complete its function. So it's the functional unit of a kidney that filters blood to produce urine. And each kidney has about 1 million nephrons. So we can see the kidney, and then we're looking at a little pyramid of it. And then we look at these nephrons, which are quite small, and we can see that they have blood comes in, and then they have these tubules, and then urine goes out. Okay, in our next video, we're going to talk about the specifics of what happens in this nephron and how urine is formed. And you're going to need this worksheet. I don't know if I can show you. It's blurred out. It looks like this. I will see you then. Bye.